Welcome to WHACHACHA'S Wargaming Journey. My name is Sweetness WHACHACHA, and this is episode 5, Pulling the Trigger. If you'll pardon the pun. So this is the show where I kind of take a three-pronged approach to this hobby, which is to learn, to game, and then to hobby, to craft, which is to paint and to build terrain, etc. Okay, so when we left off, I had got my armies and things together and gotten an idea what I wanted to buy for Flames of War for World War II, which is where I'm exploring at the moment. And so now it's time for me to go about purchasing these items. So I always try to buy local first. My wife and I are small business owners, and even if I wasn't, I think I hopefully would, want to support the small businesses in my community especially. So I went to my local game shop here in town, Titan Games is the one I went to, and I said, hey, I want to buy this stuff. I want to buy from Battlefront, which is the company that does Flames of War. They took like a week or something and then did a little research and said that they weren't able to do so. So that's okay. I like to give the option. And so I went up to Chicago, which is a few hours away, and they have the best game store I've ever been in for board gaming, tabletop gaming. Now that's a pretty tall order, and I urge you, if you're in that area, to go check it out. And not to throw any shade on my local game stores or game stores I've been in the past, but it just, being in a major city, it allows you to stock a lot more items because you have just a lot more people coming in, a lot more variety of people and stuff. So, and they've been in business for 30 years or so. Anyway, it's called Games Plus, if I hadn't mentioned that already. I should see it here. And they have like the biggest board gaming selection I've ever seen, and then they have an equally, if not larger, selection of wargaming, and like that includes miniatures, crafting supplies, painting supplies, terrain. I mean, it is just crazy. And there's a huge Warhammer section, of course, as you might expect. So they get a lot of stuff. It's pretty amazing. And I do like to go up there anytime I go to Chicago and I have a little time, a little wiggle room. But anyway, I usually, sometimes we'll go up there on a little reconnaissance. Now, when it comes to terrain and building terrain and making things, there's a lot of companies out there, and there's a lot of small companies out there as well. And I personally do not like the 3D printing craze. I'm so happy that people are enjoying that and that's their thing. But for me, like, I look at that 3D printed stuff and I see all the lines. That's the first thing I see, and I cannot see past it. And especially if you're going to dry brush things, those raised edges are going to pick up that paint, and it's going to just, exacerbate that problem. So I'm not a big fan of that stuff, but I like to be able to see the stuff, to see if like the plastic is bent or if the scale is wrong, or sometimes I'll see stuff, and because I'm not local, I'll buy maybe I'll buy some plants, some weird plants I see, and then later on I can research that company and see what else they have available. And I've done that with a bunch of stuff. Sometimes I'll just buy something for $5 or $10 or a couple pieces that look kind of neat, and I'll see what else the company has, and I'll make use of those items as well. So it's a great resource to be able to do that sort of thing. I mean, when it comes to terrain especially, there's just so much stuff out there, and the quality can vary, and sometimes you want a certain thing. As much as you might think like this, of course I'm going to be able to find this, and lo and behold, it is actually a lot more difficult than you might think, because there's just not a ton of people looking for that stuff, which makes sense. Okay, so I went up to Games Plus, and I forgot my list, which is so stupid, but I bought the bulk of my stuff up there, spent a pretty good chunk of change, hurt a little bit, and then I went on to Battlefront's website to fill in the gaps of things that they might not have had or I might not have found. Okay, but when I was there, I got, as I had intended to do, I bought the starter sets, because as I said last episode, that is the biggest bang for your buck. That's a jumping in point. They want you to get a lot of stuff right up front, and they want you to feel like you've got a value for your money. And so I bought Kasserine, and I bought the Fighting First for the US, and then the German DAC Panzers. So I got those 3 boxes, and then I thought I might as well buy like the dice that go along with them. They have like the dice packs with the objective markers and things like that in there, which is pretty cool, as well as the unit cards. Now, the unit cards turned out to be, I think it's a waste of money. Personally, I wish I had realized this prior, but all the units come with cards. I have the information in the books I bought, and now you're getting the cards in the, if you buy the unit, you've got the cards. So what do you need the cards for? I'm not quite sure. They have you can take these extra cards for a few points to give your army maybe a little bit of a difference, but I don't think I'm really going to get into that too much. So I really wish that I had saved my money on that particular product, but you live, you learn. And then of course I mentioned as well about having bought the hardcover book, which I love. I love having that, but I've got like 15 of these things now. These Flames of War, they give you these the regular rule, the core rules. So that was a bit of a miss as well. Okay, so I got the box sets, and you have the boxes, and you're thinking to yourself, this is pretty pricey. These boxes are not cheap, but they're absolutely chocked full of sprues. And one nice thing is that all of the sprues, it's like one sprue, one tank. That's all that's on that sprue, so you know that that's just one unit. And a lot of times when you buy these, I think like Warhammer might do this. From what I remember, very, very limited toe dipping into Warhammer many years ago. And I think they might have like a number of units on the same sprue, so you're cutting a bunch of people out and stuff like that. So I really like that it's just one sprue, one tank. Everything is just for that one item. So it leads to a little, it makes it a little easier for me. I prefer that quite a lot. So after my little Games Plus visit, I just used Battlefront's website to order up anything that I was missing, or fill in those holes of those units that I wanted to get. Couple of things about Battlefront. Their site isn't accurate in terms of up-to-date inventory, so I placed a big order, and then I got an invoice saying, hey, these are the items that we're sending you, and the others are back ordered. So that was a little disappointing, because, if you're looking to plan, then I could have actually bought them on a different site or somewhere else to try to get like a free shipping bundle or something like that. There's just no way to know when it would come in. I did get some stuff pretty quickly as an aside. It's been a little while since this has happened. So they kind of automatically send you this stuff. And so that's both good and bad. Number one, it was great to see them say, hey, here's all the stuff that you ordered, and pretty quickly. A lot of companies can develop a very large amount of the SKU bloat or whatever, where it's just like they have so many items that they're going to be out of stock on a lot of them. But Battlefront really pretty quickly sent that, and I've got everything that I ordered. However, I went and bought a couple of those items in the meantime because I thought, oh, they'll probably let me know or whatever, but they just kind of send that stuff. So there's some good and some bad there, but nothing was very quick. It's about I'm used to like buy it and it's on its way to me, like my face is pressed against the glass while I'm waiting for these things to arrive. But it takes about a week for them to get the package ready to send, and then they send it. So a little bit of good and a little bit of bad there. But it helps to be patient, I guess. We're in a very impatient society. But yeah, so I got all the stuff that I wanted, and I got all my boxes and stuff, so that was good. So I had a pretty perfect scenario set up where I had a few days of snow, which was, great for a hobbyist, right? There was frost on the window. I had a nice mug of tea, nice hot mug of tea. Had my tablet up with some stuff playing, and I set to cutting things out, which was a great little scenario for me. Now, couple things about, and I mentioned that it was great that each sprue had its own, one tank on there. Now, there are some drawbacks here. So there's no real instruction saying these are the pieces you need, these are the pieces that you don't. Now, normally when I get the sprue to cut out for various modeling, gaming or otherwise, I just cut everything out. And I like to kind of cut it out, leave it in a little pile, and then I know what that unit is, and then I cut out the next one, I leave a little pile. And I like to kind of like do things out like that, like cut all the stuff out and then glue all the things at once so that it's sort of assembly line-ish, and then, I don't have to get my glue out and glue and then go back to cutting. I don't know, there seems to be somewhat of an efficiency there. But these, like a ton of the parts on the sprue don't go to that tank or unit at all. You get like all these extra pieces. Now, some of it is stowage, which is pretty awesome. You get different stowage options, so you can add, like a wheel or gas tanks or sandbags or whatever. There's a bunch of little items there to give each tank its own unique feel, which is awesome. And I'm going to kind of go into that later, about that a little more in another episode. But there's a ton of pieces that just have no use at all. And there's no instructions saying, hey, these are the pieces you need, these are the pieces you don't need. So I spent a lot of time cutting. Now you think you've got like 20 or 40 sprues or whatever I had. I got a lot of stuff. That's a lot of wasted time. And so what I ended up doing, when I realized what was happening, I just try to cut out the pieces that I needed, which saved me a lot of time, but it also feels a little wasteful. Now, other companies, now I'll probably mention this a few times because the most recent game that I've been doing cutting out models and pieces for has been Marvel Crisis Protocol from Atomic Mass Games. And one nice thing is you just, cut out the pieces to your figure or whatever. You cut out Magneto or whatever. And you've got 2 legs, 2 arms, a chest, his cape and his head, and, maybe other accoutrement on his base or whatever. And you can basically figure out where things go, and you're like, oh, I'm looking for a leg. Well, there's the leg that I haven't glued. That's the one that goes on here. And there's a certain amount of ease that goes into this. And when you're like, well, I don't know which piece is on here. Is this one? And it led to a few problems, actually, because I cut out the wrong barrel for my M10s, and I ended up adding those to, when I went to glue them and stuff, I ended up adding them to the wrong barrel to that tank, or the anti-tank. So that was a bit of an annoyance for me, and it's a little frustrating. Now, there was somebody on Discord, actually. I joined a Flames of War Discord. I haven't really used it very much, but somebody on there was really, really cool too, and I hope it's okay. They don't mind that I'm sharing this on here. But they broke down all the pieces of one of the sprues, as you can see here, which is kind of cool. And in going on Flames of War website, you can find, they have articles and stuff, and they'll do the same thing where they'll break down the different parts of a sprue or how you'll build a certain tank, but not all the tanks, not all the units that they have. So it's very hit or miss. So as I say, for Marvel Crisis Protocol, you can go on and they'll show you, they'll have the model, and you can push a little arrow, which you can turn it around so you can see different aspects of it for painting or for building it. And then they have instructions showing you how to build it. And so that's all the information you need about that model. Now, Battlefront kind of, sometimes they have it and sometimes they don't. And so that's a little frustrating, when you have a sprue where you're like, I don't know if all these pieces go or which of these pieces go or what this is or what that is. And it's a bit frustrating. So I felt like that was a bit of an annoyance for me personally. Now, the starter boxes did have a couple of sheets with them, but even there was a little bit of a discrepancy. So the Lees had a tire guard that you could put on, and I thought that was probably part of what makes the Grant, because the instructions on the website for the Grant adds those, and it's pretty much the same tank otherwise. I think, do not jump down my throat, because I'm still learning about the different kinds of tanks. But even in my Kasserine box versus my Fighting First box, the 2 base boxes, same units and 2 different, completely different, well, not completely different, but 2 different instructions, one with the wheel guards and one without. And so, I mean, I guess it's kind of mind-boggling to me that you'd have, you open up the box and there's no instructions or different instructions. And, the base boxes definitely had some, had some useful information in there. Maybe not totally complete because there's a bunch of extra parts, but the other, the expansion boxes, the smaller unit boxes and things I got, and I'll get to that in a bit in another episode here, but they were that was a Wild West. And it's mind-boggling to me that you can get a product and there would just be no documentation or instructions. It's a little crazy, I think, but that's just, I guess, but even then just going online and doing a little research, you still might not know. I mean, they still might not have that. So it seems kind of crazy to me. So other than that, the only 2 issues I had with the sprues themselves were there were some burrs on the side of the Panzers, and then the Stuarts went together a little weird, gluing them together. I've noticed a gap, and so I did a couple of them, and then when I went to glue the others, I glued them differently. I held them in a different way and did it in a different order, which I felt went much better in terms of getting a good seal between the pieces. So other than those little burrs and that one thing about the Stuarts, everything went together great and everything looks really great. There's a whole other thing I'm going to go into later as well about I left some of my turrets and my barrels off because I'm thinking about magnetizing and how I'm going to approach that. And I'll cover that in a separate video. So just to quickly sum up about all that, I got all my stuff, which is great. Battlefront with the back order, little snafu there. And then, I was a little annoyed about the instruction thing and about the clarity of what the pieces were and stuff. But in the end, everything looks pretty awesome. I can't wait to paint them. The artillery looks amazing, looks really cool. You get the little, you get some various infantry to man the guns, and they have like, ammo boxes and shells and things like that you can put alongside and kind of have a little bit of a freedom to do a little bit more with that. So I thought that was really cool. And then the tanks look amazing. They look so good. They look really, really, really awesome. The Shermans look amazing. The Lees and the Stewarts, they look so cool. The M10s, everything looks fantastic. I'm very excited about them, and I love having the extra stowage options and things to further add to that. And then I like the fact that you can put the turrets and things on, and you don't have to glue them down. They nest in there nicely. They're not going to come off, and you can turn them. You can turn so if you want to kind of like move your tanks around in the battle and turn the barrels and things, you can do so. They come with decals as well, which is cool, and they give lots of options for having open and closed hatches, which I'm magnetizing as well, and I'll go into that in a later episode. But they have stuff where people are kind of looking out, or they're fully out with binoculars, or you can put them closed. So there's a lot of little options there, which I think is really cool. And I think, like, so far everything that I put together looks amazing, and I cannot wait to get it onto the table to play. Okay, so moving on from hobbying, we're going to skip over gaming, sadly, and we're going to go on to learning. So I've been listening to a new YouTube channel I discovered called Histiograph. Now, I use YouTube constantly, and I like to listen to these. They have like, this is an example of one of these where they have a lot of good information. There is some animation, but you can just listen. And I listen to YouTube constantly. You can turn off your phone and use it just like a podcast. I pay for YouTube. I'm not getting anything out of this, but it's crazy to me when people just don't. When they're like, "Oh, it's free, so I won't pay," even though like $6 a month. You don't have to listen to any ads at all, which is so helpful for me. Like, I must watch hundreds of videos a month or put music on or whatever, and not having to use those ads. It's kind of an interesting, like, psychological thing of like, hey, I could pay $6 for this service that's incredible, or I could not pay anything, but then suffer through all these, it's worth it to me for $6. Anyway, that's such a rabbit hole, unnecessary tangent. Histiograph, which I've found quite interesting. Now, a lot of naval battle stuff I've been listening to so far, and I know that doesn't tie in directly to what I'm going to be playing, but it sure is fascinating. There was a bit of series, though, about the Norway invasion. Now, just to take a moment about Norway, we all have our little connections or our little preferences and things, and I happen to really, really love Norway. My wife and I went to visit there, just as a little tangent. As a gamer, I really love Uwe Rosenberg. Now, Uwe Rosenberg is a very famous designer for Caverna, Agricola, Le Havre, or Labora, all these really big Euro games. So he's very big in Germany and across the world. And I happen to really love his games. Now, he did one called Nusfjord, and Nusfjord, I thought, I don't know, what is this? It's about a city, or it's a city is about a place, let's say that, in Norway. And so I thought, well, I'd like to learn a little bit about this. And so I went and I looked, and it's in the Lofoten Islands, and I looked and look at where it is. That to me just called on something inside of me, just that location. I thought, like, I was like Bilbo wanting to wear a sword instead of a walking stick just once. I thought, I gotta go there. And so my wife and actually, that was the inspiration for us to go to Norway and to the Lofoten Islands. And I've done a fair bit of traveling in my life, and this is the most beautiful place I think I've ever been above the sea. I shall say it that way. Above sea level. Absolutely incredible place. And so traveling around in Norway, we go north and south as well from the Lofoten Islands. And so being able to hear a little bit about that on Histiograph had several parts about the Norway invasion. And just in general, it's very interesting to me, the Norway aspect of it, because you hear so much about the Eastern Front, the Western Front, and like America, D-Day. D-Day is gets 99% of the press in this country anyway. And it's very interesting because it's part of the war that you really don't hear very much about, and I really knew nothing about. So there's some very interesting things in there about the fact that they had resources and they were so close, and Britain's like, should we go in here so that the Germans can't go and get it? And it was a very interesting little series. especially so because I know those, like some of those locations, and I've been to some of those cities, and I found that to be very, very interesting. And again, not knowing much about Scandinavia's role in World War II, knowing they were involved, but not knowing really their role, that I found his series to be very, very interesting to me. I also rewatched The Bridge Over the River Kwai, which if you haven't seen it is incredible. It's Alec Guinness. It takes place during World War II in a prisoner of war camp. I'd seen it many years ago, and I really liked it years ago, and I thought, I wonder if this will hold up. And it absolutely does. It is such an incredible movie. Just even seeing it the second time almost is better, because you watch those evolution of those characters and you get to know what's going to happen, with them, and you can kind of get a greater appreciation. His what a great war movie, in terms of like, you're seeing not those great big grandiose battles, so to speak, but you're seeing a different side of the war and just human nature and just those power struggles and stuff. And Alec Guinness's character, I wish I could remember his name, but his fascinating, and it has a phenomenal ending. It really does resonate with you. So I was very happy to see that again, and it definitely made me excited maybe to play some to get some German, or some British units in there. But anyway, that's all I have for you today. Hopefully you found this enjoyable. If you like cooperative gaming, you can find me over at Co-op for Two as an often guest. If you like movies, I have WHACHACHA'S watch list, where if you like to hear me talk, you can see me there. But where you will not find me probably is the comments below or anywhere on social media. I'm just terrible at it. But I do appreciate you for joining me today, and we'll see you on the next episode.